Well, we got the E720 flown, so Kurt, let's jump into the 5x5 review. We'll start with model characteristics. Assembly, you gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yes, Thunder Tiger makes, like 4 different versions in this model. I think at the time of this build, there's the flybarless version, flybar, electric, and nitro. So if you go nitro flybar, nitro flybarless, electric, you got 4 different possible scenarios where you assemble it. The manual covers all of that. It refers back to nitro if you're doing nitro, if you're doing electric, if you're doing flybar or flybarless or flybar. With all of that, instructions are pretty intuitive. They take you straight through the construction of the airframe proper. All the parts were there. Of course, everything was accounted for. There was no issues with the kit at all. But then they kind of drop you off, like, okay, we've pretty much got the main parts put together. Now you figure out the rest. They really don't give you an idea of best places or locations for accessories, and I know that's a separate section. I don't want to cover that too in advance, but that affected the assembly a little bit. 4 to 5 though, it was good. Like I said, parts were there and the instructions covered everything, and they even did some work for you by putting the bearing assemblies together and stuff. So it was relatively uneventful, but a couple areas, a couple things were lost in translation. The English translation said, wait a minute, what are they saying here? But you could figure your way through the manual.
Sure. All right, compatibility, which means how well does this platform lend itself to other manufacturers' products being put into it. 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah, and as I'd mentioned, they kind of drop you off. You built all the main parts. Now, go forth and prosper. Put stuff where you need to put it, and make sure stuff's out of the way. So, you kind of sit and scratch your head a little bit and think, oh, I've got a big old ESC. Where am I to put that? I've got, my receiver. There's not really a great place to put that, because you start getting through the design of the Raptor itself as it incorporates some of the what I consider to be legacy. Not that it's a bad thing, but they use intermediate linkage. So your servo horn to a pull or idler, and then you end up going to the actual swash plate. With that said, there's a lot of passageways that aren't really accessible to you, because you got to make sure you're clearing all that linkage movement and stuff. So you're not going to route wires here. You're not going to route wires here. So you're kind of forced down these paths that kind of leave you to where did I put it? And with that said, the batteries go in the main frame here, and you're going to want to keep all of this free so you can slip in or slip out your tray. It took some time to be as creative as possible. So you'll find, talk to other hobbyists, check out other models. I'll do that every time I see something new that we're going to be checking out or testing, is I'll see where they put everything. Like, well, so that's not an old issue or a new issue, is to say that's been around for years. We saw the older helicopters that they just kind of said, here's the frame, do what you need to do. Pro pilots are going to think of it as a non-issue, because they're going to put it together and they get so much use out of these things. For hobbyist pilots, it's kind of like, and people that are newer to larger format helicopters, you're kind of like, well, where do I put what and what do I do? So with that said, it has tremendous compatibility, because it doesn't really predispose anything to any location. But at the same time, where do you put it all? So we've seen some of the newer designs know that they're going to have a flybarless control unit. They know they're going to have a pretty massive ESC, and there's going to have to be wire paths back to the motor. So this even passes the rudder control. The servo's mounted up front. The rudder control goes just above the main motor wires. So I think from that perspective, there definitely could be improvements in terms of where you're going to put things and what does the design lend itself to.
All right, part quality, 5 out of 5.
Yeah, Raptor is known as not being the least expensive on the market. Thunder Tiger, they're higher level or pro level helicopters, but you can also look at part quality and say, well, you kind of get what you pay for in terms of very well constructed, finished off, no sharp edges on your carbon fiber. Everything's smooth and clean from the factory. Everything fits beautifully. There's no question that Thunder Tiger makes very good quality parts.
All right, all up weight, low to average.
Low to average, yeah. The actual all-up weight, as specified, or as we tested, was 11.5 pounds. That's pretty low that's comfortably low for a 700 class helicopter. There's a lot of them out there that run heavier.
Sure.
We're seeing some of the new designs, again, shaving off more and more weight. Weight is key. The heavier you are, the more power you need. The more strain there's going to be on your servos and everything else. So. It's not that heavy of an aircraft to begin with. You could even compromise slightly on your capacity if you were flying for routines and you didn't need that much flight time. So we went with 5,000 twin packs on it, which it was well within the power capability of our setup with our Scorpion motor and stuff. So.
All right, cost average to high.
again, it goes back to part quality is part of it, and it's just, the Thunder Tiger brand in general.
Yeah.
They're competition class helicopters.
Well, it's just a simple matter of you're going to pay more for higher quality.
You are, and then I think there's also a diminishing point of return when you look at it from the hobbyist perspective. You start paying for maybe what would be perceived as quality or component, quality, where it's really not necessary. So you have to kind of ride that fine line.
Yeah.
What justifies the additional expense, especially if you don't see some of the more modern innovations coming into the design. You question, wait a minute, am I paying for more of a legacy design? And then that cost, the price the money you save isn't worth the price you pay.
Yeah.
That can work in the opposite direction
Sure.
too. The extra money you paid wasn't worth the cost in the end. So I would say that it's definitely average high for what you're getting for the design innovations that are present on the newer Raptors, but are absent from some of the newer helicopter designs. I put it on the average high side.
All right, moving into pilot experience, flight characteristics, 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, it's so many choices to make. What's your motor setup? What's your pinion setup? What flybarless control unit did you choose? What are your cyclic servos? What's your tail rotor servo? So many things can affect the performance of the Raptor when you first
Yeah.
take it off. So those decisions weigh just as heavily into the performance or the inherent characteristics.
Yeah.
Now, we spent a lot of time trying to get our 750 dialed into where it felt comfortable. The CGY 750 gyro from Futaba is a very versatile gyro, but the programming is not the most it's most simple. It's a little cumbersome to get through, and I don't mind saying that because it doesn't mean it's less of a gyro. It just means the programming is cumbersome. If they had a PC interface for the programming, I think a lot of people would absolutely love them for it because you'd be able to lay everything out and manipulate it as such. It does have an LCD screen on the front, which you would think, all right, that's going to make it really simple, but it's a one-line LCD screen. Everything's abbreviated, and you've got 4 buttons.
Yeah.
The 4 buttons are in one mode, another level, menu level, another. You have to keep the manual with you, and you're kind of flipping through, and it's a thick little manual. You get through, and okay, well, I need to do this, but wait a minute, this is related to that. It can be a little more complex in the programming. Yeah. There's a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of configuration options within the 750, but out-of-the-box default setup, I found that it was just not responsive. It didn't. The pyro rate was so slow. I wasn't getting the travel on the cyclic servos that I wanted. A lot of things that I was like, I got to change this. Tweak, fly it. Tweak, fly it. Did a lot of back and forth to get it to where, okay, excuse me, it flies now to where I'm starting to see some of the characteristics of the actual Raptor.
Yeah.
And you have to get through that to be able to start seeing what the airframe tendencies are. More extended center of gravity. We're not as compact as some of the other designs out there now, which lends itself again to certain types of pattern flying. It's great. Scale fuselage flying, pop the Raptor instead of a scale fuselage. You're going to love it. You've got extra headroom to work with. It's a very well balanced design. Ours performed well. It'll do pretty much anything you want it to do. Again, with the right setup, the right power, and the right options. It's going to go all the way up to winning, class level or competition class events. But what I found it to be was a more traditional, a larger feel in the air. It just felt like a larger design. And but again, make the right choices on your options, and it's going to feel nimble when you get it up and fly it. So very much a competition class. Plus 15 minus 15 on the pitch is going to give you any kind of hardcore 3D you want. So it's all there. All the pieces are there.
All right, turnaround time. How long does it take between flights to get it back in the air? And you've got it labeled as short.
Yep, absolutely. You've got a drop-down tray for the battery. You just throw a lever and it drops down. Now there's a keeper in here that you can throw in for security so it doesn't eject during flight if you're worried about that. But you can leave the canopy on, tilt the helicopter up on its nose, drop the tray, pull it out, keep it in the tray, charge it, put it back together, and you're ready to go. So that's a short turnaround time.
All right. Performance range, basically the airframe itself, does it lend itself to be in, what category does it land in as far as taking you from one point to another, from one level to another? You've got this as basic through pro.
Yep, absolutely. It's a very wide flight envelope. You can set it up in normal mode in a scale fuselage and do beautiful scale flights with it. It's going to handle that just fine. What I see is more traditional head now, flybarless with the mixing arms. It's not going to have any oscillation tendencies or anything that you may see pop up on some of the newer designs. So it's going to handle lower RPMs well, which is great if you want to run multi-bladed, head designs or whatever. So just stock as it is, you can take it down to normal mode, zipping along, doing your forward flight and your basic aerobatics in a idle up mode. and it's going to handle it just fine. And then you can crank things up to the maximum, and it's going to do hardcore 3D.
All right. Repair costs. If you happen to have a crash, you've got it marked average to high.
Average to high. Yeah, it's it's again, the parts are a little more expensive on some of the Thunder Tiger components. Again, we see that weighed out with part quality. They're great parts, very good quality parts. But you're going to find that now the durability is very high, and we had an incident with our first testing of this, and it goes back to the inherent design of a set screw that goes in and holds the drift pins. The drift pins keep the gears in place for the tail. We actually ejected a drift pin up here on the forward gear, and what it was is the set screw wasn't just cranked down as tight as it could be. You've got a really hard pin and a hardened set screw, so if you got two hard surfaces, nothing's really grooving in to hold it in place really well, so it's just going to rely on that pressure. We actually found that's what happened, is we didn't tighten those down enough, and it ejected a pin. And it did so actually on one of the first couple flights, so it doesn't like it was something that showed up 10 flights down the road or 20 flights down the road. But the way the set screw goes all the way inside of the shaft, it goes very deep inside the shaft to reach that drift pin. And you're just going to want to make sure you really hog down on it nice and tight and use your thread locker, but really get into it. Use good quality helicopter wrenches or hex wrenches. And there's a lot of them out there from a lot of different manufacturers, but they're very hard, and they're not like your local hardware store.
They're not going to round over
Allen
easily.
wrench that you're going to get in there and it's pretty tight. You're going to want some nice helicopter setup wrenches, and you'll be fine. Just really hog it down nice and tight, and then check it frequently. About every 5 or 10 flights, make sure things are seated well, and it's not going to move on you. But and it does require, actually, the Raptor requires some lube as well on the gears, which is not all of them require lube. Some of them we see now do, but you're going to have to do maintenance anyway, so you might as well check those set pins or set screws while you're relubing the gears.
All right, skill level, advanced to pro.
Yeah, advanced to pro. This is a larger helicopter. It's a tough thing to say, beginner. Beginner is coaxials and fixed pitches. Intermediate is the beginning of getting into this type of helicopter. With that said, it's intermediate because you're just doing forward flight and you're maybe doing some inverts and some simple aerobatics. This is a competition class helicopter, and as such, it's also a 700, which is a large helicopter size. So you need not only the flight skills of an intermediate, but more intermediate to advanced or an advanced pilot. You need the sensibility of an advanced pilot. One thing you'll find as you go through your skill progression is, you don't react quite as quickly as you need to on that throttle hold. And if you get into a situation where you're going in, that throttle hold switch flip can be the difference between a $500 or $600 crash or a $200 crash. It's about releasing all that pressure from the main drive gears to be able to bring it in and let flop on the ground what's going to flop, but don't auger it in. So as you get into a helicopter of this size, we always kind of recommend this is more advanced. This is a more advanced helicopter by all means. It's a competition class helicopter, and you're gonna benefit tremendously by working with those skills going into the experience. So.
All right.
Well, that wraps up our review of the Raptor G4 E720. You can see the full review at our website at tubefly.com. For mobile users, you can go to rcflightsource.com, download the mobile app, and take our content on the go. I'm Kurt with Two Brothers Hobby.
And I'm Rob. Thanks for watching.